From his stylish striking to his undefeated bravado, this is why Joe Rogan thinks Ian Garry is the UFC's next best. Every once in a while, a fighter comes along who piques the interest of fight fans. Someone with an extra spring in their step, a flair in their style, a confidence when they talk, that just makes us believe that someday this guy's gonna be a champion. It's not often that we find a fighter like that. Heck, how many athletes can we even name? Of the thousands on rosters of MMA promotions around the globe, there's not one person you could mention more qualified to judge a fighter than Joe Rogan. The Taekwondo champion and BJJ black belt, a martial arts fanatic who's commentated in the UFC for more than 26 years? And his opinion of Garry is nothing but praise. But who exactly is Ian Machado Garry? And where has the swaggy Irishman suddenly emerged from? The 25-year-old mixed martial artist hails from Portmarnock, Ireland. And even before entering the UFC, he was putting on some awesome performances inside the cage. He began training in boxing at the age of 10. And when rising superstar Conor McGregor began drawing attention to MMA, the young Ian decided to diversify into judo. And by the age of 18, he had acquired his black belt. The young fighter attended university for only a couple of months before deciding that the books weren't really his thing, and he dropped out to focus purely on martial arts. Ian had his first amateur bout just after turning 19, and even his amateur record is pretty impressive. By November 2018, over the course of 1 year, the Irishman had racked up an astounding 6 wins via brutal finishes, while sustaining only 1 decision loss. With this strong start, Ian made his professional debut at Cage Warriors 101 in 2019, beating his opponent via unanimous decision and earning both Fight of the Night and a contract with the promotion. Garry followed up his debut by winning 5 fights in a row, and this streak earned him a shot at the Cage Warriors welterweight championship. The 23-year-old managed to beat Jack Grant for Cage Warrior Gold, and in July of 2021, he announced that he'd been offered a contract by the world's premier MMA promotion, the UFC. Since then, it's not like Garry has taken his foot off the gas. Oh no, quite the opposite. The rising fighter has done nothing but put on impressive displays in the octagon, going on a 5-win streak in the UFC, 3 of those victories coming by way of brutal knockout. You only have to watch a few minutes of Ian Garry fight to understand why he's nicknamed The Future. His style is highly entertaining for the fans, comprising mainly of surgical striking that allows for him to add those devastating finishes to his highlight reel. The Irishman is fond of explosive combos, and his long reach means that he can land some interesting strikes essentially at a whim, especially a left high kick that his opponents know about. But I can't do anything to stop. Standing at 6'3" with a reach of 74 inches, the guy is definitely one big welterweight. His unusually large frame will only serve him as he climbs through the rankings, allowing him to keep his distance and set up those nasty shots that he lands so well. Garry's record as a professional is undefeated, and the only loss he sustained is the one we mentioned earlier, back in his days as an amateur. His confidence reflects that of an undefeated fighter, and it's that relaxed self-assurance that makes him so deadly to the competition and so exciting for the fans. Now, despite only being 5 fights into his UFC career, Ian has built himself a bit of a buzz on social media with an Instagram following of almost 300,000 fans. He represents a new age of fighter similar to Sugar Sean O'Malley, willing to build an online presence and connect with viewers, and that will only help boost his superstar status. After beating Daniel Rodriguez via devastating knockout in the first round, Garry has climbed to number 13 in the UFC's welterweight rankings. Speaking to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, he called out Neil Magny, who's currently ranked number 11, saying that he's the fighter he'd love to take on next. Now, all the fighter's success and style hasn't gone unnoticed by the icons of the sport. Podcast host and UFC commentator Joe Rogan has heaped praise on the up-and-coming fighter, and he's seen his fair share of mixed martial artists come and go. Speaking to Boss Rutan on an episode of his podcast, Rogan described Garry as confident and intelligent, adding, "He's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. He's on his way up." I don't know about Garry, but if I had Joe Rogan singing my praises to the millions of listeners on his podcast, I'd be pretty damn pumped. But the veteran UFC commentator isn't the only one saying good things about Garry in the press. Being a fighter in the UFC, there is one person that you definitely need to like you. And Ian seems to have that box checked. The UFC's president Dana White has voiced admiration for the young Irish fighter, saying he's super confident and that kid's ready to take over the world. Even adding, he's fun. We have the Irish guy blueprint around here. No doubt referring to the promotion's last megastar who hailed from the island, the notorious Conor McGregor. Other fighters have weighed in on Garry, including top-ranked welterweight contender Gilbert Burns. In an interview with BT Sport, Burns mentioned how Ian had come to train with him, looking to improve upon his grappling skills. And the Brazilian laughed while describing his young welterweight counterpart as crazy, asserting that he has a bright future ahead of him. Definitely some kind words there, but Burns better watch out, since if Garry continues to climb the ranks of the division, they'll more than likely have to face each other in the octagon soon. On the Schaub Show podcast, host and former UFC heavyweight Brendan Schaub sat down with commentator Jon Anik, and Ian Garry came up as one of the most impressive rising prospects in the UFC. Schaub commented on the young fighter, saying, "That kid has superstar written all over him." While Jon Anik expressed that he believes Ian Garry is definitely a title contender worth betting your chips on. Let's just hope that all this praise doesn't go to Garry's head. Coming up in the UFC, Ian has been subjected to a fair few McGregor comparisons, as he was bound to coming from the same country. But the young Irishman hasn't let it bother him, saying in an interview with ESPN, "Being compared to one of the biggest superstars on the planet and the person who changed the sport isn't a bad thing in my eyes. So yeah, I'll take it and run with it." Since the superstar in question, McGregor himself, has made comments on the young up-and-comer, and the former double champion has had nothing but good things to say. Speaking to Ariel Helwani, Conor said, "He's a force to be reckoned with," adding, "I'd love to see him rise up and win a world title." A lot of love there from the former champ, but some commentators don't agree with the respectful approach that Garry has taken with regards to his relationship with Conor. Former middleweight contender and ESPN commentator Chael Sonnen has weighed in on Ian, praising his elite striking skills and even pointing out his superior defense and setups. But the American gangster also had some words of warning for the rising star. Sonnen feels that by embracing comparisons about Conor, Garry is unconsciously capping his success, and that now after his respectful approach to the situation, Ian may have to resign himself to forever living in McGregor's shadow. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Garry is on an unbeaten win streak, and with his awesome striking and huge frame, the youngster can definitely rise up and prove himself as a title contender, even winning the UFC gold. At just 25 years old, he's got plenty of time to build himself up. And anyway, Rogan believes the guy is something special. So there you have it, fight fans. From his stylish striking to his undefeated bravado. That was why Joe Rogan thinks Ian Garry is the UFC's next best.